Our News from the Hill segment tonight, the mainstream media laughed when President Trump accused the Obama administration of wiretapping him. But they're not laughing now after new documents reveal that former Trump campaign manager Paul Manafort was, in fact, being wiretapped, perhaps even during phone calls with the president himself, and as recently as the beginning of this year. So what was the extent of this surveillance, and what does this say about the role of the so-called deep state in influencing our political system? With me now from the Center for Security Policy, former CIA analyst Fred Fleitz. Fred, good to see you.
Hey, Liz, good to be here.
All right, Fred, elementary question to start here. I mean, this revelation that Paul Manafort was, in fact, wiretapped, does this vindicate President Trump's claims from March when he said that the Obama administration was snooping on him?
It's a great story. Let me tell you a story. I was watching CNN recently, which I try not to do, and I watched this reporter try to squirm her way out of explaining that Trump was right. She said, well, yeah, Manafort was wiretapped, and he appeared to have been wiretapped in Trump Tower, and some of those phone calls might have been with Donald Trump, but Donald Trump was still wrong. I'm sorry, Liz, but it looks like Donald Trump was right, but we're never going to see the mainstream media admit that.
No, I mean, I don't know how the mainstream media is going to wiggle out of it. I think they're just denial. Put the blinders on in denial. Even James Clapper, former DNI, admits that it is conceivable that it happened. We have the video of that. Take a look.
Is it possible the president was picked up in a conversation with Paul Manafort?
It's certainly conceivable. Yeah,
is it likely?
I can't say. I wouldn't want to go there, but I will say it's possible.
That's what he said. That's what Clapper says now. This was him on March 5th, I believe. Listen to this one.
For the part of the national security apparatus that I oversaw as DNI, there was no such wiretap activity mounted against the president-elect at the time, or as a candidate, or against his campaign. I can't speak for other Title III authorized entities in the government or a state or local entity.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if the FBI, for instance, had a FISA court order of some sort for a surveillance, would that be information you would know or not know?
Yes.
You would be told this?
I would know that.
If there was a FISA court order on something like this?
Something like this, absolutely.
And at this point, you can't confirm or deny whether that exists?
I can deny it.
There is no FISA court order?
Not to my knowledge.
Of anything at Trump Tower?
No.
All right, Fred, explain this one to me, because it seems to me this can't be explained away. Either Clapper was lying or Clapper was lying. He just needs to pick which month he wants to admit to his lie.
Well, we're now reading in the news media details about Mueller's investigation. And let me stop by saying investigations by the Justice Department special counsel shouldn't be leaked to the news media, but that's for another show. We now know that Manafort was under a FISA warrant since 2014. Which means if there was a FISA warrant, it had nothing to do with the Trump campaign. It predated the Trump campaign, and Clapper should have known about this. And Clapper's denial here, either he's out to lunch or he was lying. I actually like Mr. Clapper, so I'd like to think he was out to lunch.
Well, if he didn't know, I mean, that doesn't speak too highly of his competence here. But correct me if I'm wrong. I do want to talk about the leaks that we've been hearing via the media about these investigations for just a second. And perhaps I'm mistaken on this, but I believe it's a felony to leak information about a FISA order, including leaking the existence of a FISA order. So the fact that we are being told through, of course, anonymous sources, my favorite, that there's a FISA order, or there was a FISA court warrant against Paul Manafort, wasn't that a felony even to publicize that information?
I think there have been all kinds of felonies committed. Bear in mind, the FISA reports had been rumored during the 2016 campaign. I think the Obama and maybe the Clinton campaign leaked knowledge of this to hurt Trump, the candidate. Now we have leaks of an ongoing investigation of a classified FISA order. And I mean, in the Justice Department, in the FBI, they're not supposed to do this. You know, other than the fact that it's illegal, it's highly unfair to the person being investigated who's supposed to be innocent until proven guilty.
Right, because that's certainly not what's happening now. I mean, it sounds to me, and I'm not the judge or the jury or any of the investigators, it sounds to me like Manafort did engage in some shady activities. If he did, he should be held accountable for that to the extent of the law. But at the same time, he should be presumed to be innocent until proven guilty. But this seems to me, and I hesitate to use this phrase because it sounds so much like a conspiracy, but it seems to me this is another example of the deep state, that there are actors within our government who are not acting in the interest of the American people. They're not upholding their responsibility to keep this information private. They're just trying to release it in order to destroy or delegitimize President Trump. This is another example of that.
I think a good case can be made for that. And I also think there is some kind of an effort to try Manafort in the news media, to put pressure on him, maybe to flip him, so he'll testify against Donald Trump. I don't know what he has against Donald Trump. I assume he has nothing. But that's why these special counsel investigations are such a problem. They just go on and on and on. Why is an investigation or possible collaboration between the Trump campaign and the Russians taking up an investigation that began in 2014? I mean, this is just getting out of control.
Well, it's all about politics here. I find it hard to believe. I said this on the show yesterday. I find it very hard to believe that if there were a smoking gun on President Trump that had been uncovered in any way by any of these investigations, that we would not have heard about that, given the extent of what we were just talking about, all these leaks of classified information. There is no way they would have kept that private. They would have rushed to make that public as soon as possible in order to take him down. It bothers me, though, that it doesn't seem to bother liberals and Democrats that politics are so rampant in our national security community right now, that it doesn't bother liberals the idea of a president, his administration of one party, President Obama's administration in this example, that wiretapped the opposing candidate running for president. I mean, regardless of your partisan opinions, that should bother you.
I mean, this is something that goes on in tin pot dictatorships, and basically we're seeing here the weaponization of intelligence to destroy your political opponents. That is inconsistent with the American system, and frankly, all the civil liberties people who are complaining about NSA and NSA spying on Americans, they really need to speak out now, because this is an enormous threat to our system of government and our liberties.
Right. It's a threat. It's dangerous to everyone because men are flawed. People, mankind are flawed. There will be people who take advantage of loopholes in the system. That's why we have these protections. Somebody will abuse it, and you don't know. The target of that abuse could be you or your own political party, and that's why it's dangerous.